Okay, tell us, what are the challenges of rural communities in getting access to broadband?
Um, there are different layers of challenges. I think one of the one of the main challenges is simply not having access, and access in the form of infrastructure, but access really goes beyond accessing the service. So first of all, is we don't have a lot of service because there's not cables that come to us, and the big companies have always told us, or have told us that it's because it's not lucrative. It takes a lot of money to bring in the infrastructure to our communities, and so far away, that we're so dispersed and there's so few of us, so they don't make a profit out of it. So that's a big excuse. Um, but also not having access in the sense of maybe not owning the hardware, not owning computers, not having access in that is not in our language, not having access in that is not content that reflects our communities, and also not having access in that is not affordable. So maybe, and it could happen that a lot of us have access in our community, but it's also at over $100 a month. And so someone can say, oh, but you have access, whatever company decides that you can pay $100 a month. Well, if that means paying that versus, feeding my family, then it's not access at all. So that's one of the big challenges, access in a sense that is universal, that it covers more than just, is there a cable, can a company provide me with a service, can I buy the software, can I use it, yeah. So
What
it's
are
a big
the
challenge.
what are the downsides of not having access? What are the,
I think that's a really good question that Center for Rural Strategies right now is looking into it, because we all understand. I think we may not understand broadband as a technology, but we all understand how it can be applied in our daily lives. And I think that's what we're trying to bring to the national conversation. That broadband, in the national conversation, I think a lot of times, specifically with the stimulus money, the money that was allocated for broadband deployment in rural communities was called the cyber bridge to nowhere. And I think that's because people thought, what do people in rural communities need it for? Like, what are they gonna do? Look at pictures. And I think that um, in a national level, a lot of people don't understand how it is a vital necessity for rural communities to have. But at the same time, we don't have a lot of data to go along with that, and we also don't know. We don't. We don't have solid information yet as to what is to happen if we didn't have it. We know how we could use it, right? We could, and many of us are familiar with broadband in the sense that we email every day, we bank online, we register to vote online. But the communities that have been impacted the most are not have access to this the least, and so if we were not, when we don't have it, we are excommunicated from participation in our economic and our social life, in our civic life of the country. We're excommunicated from producing knowledge of our own communities, from participating, and from making sure that our voice is heard in a national context.
what are some of the things that rural communities you're working with are doing to try to get more access, or to
I can speak about the work that Rural Strategies is doing.
yeah.
We have a group that is called the Rural Broadband Policy Group, and this is actually born out of a few groups that met at the National Rural Assembly back in 2008. And when we heard in all of these policy scans, and the previous question you asked, what happens if we don't have it? Well, then our healthcare suffers, our healthcare infrastructure in rural communities suffer, our economic competitiveness suffer. Our businesses suffer because they're not able to compete globally. Our education suffers because a lot of people that may want advanced degrees, the only way that they could get it is via taking classes online, so our education suffers. And so these were all, in every single one of those scans back in the Rural Assembly in 2008, everyone said we need broadband. And so a group came together and decided to begin working on rural issues, on broadband rural issues. And we are now an expanding coalition of rural broadband advocates that seeks to draft and articulate policies that allow rural communities to be part of this national conversation, but not just talking, but also making sure that we shape policy and that we create collaboration among rural advocates throughout the nation. So that's something that we're doing. And if you'd like more information, you can get in touch with me. You can go to the Rural Strategies website and find out more about the work that we do, whether it is submitting comments to the FCC, whether it's providing information about funding available so that you can so that organizations can begin their own broadband project, or just connecting with other rural broadband advocates.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thanks.